There is a kind of pain that does not come from poverty. It does not come from hunger or from sickness. It comes quietly, in the middle of a comfortable life, and it whispers one terrible lie, that what you have is simply not enough. Emmanuella Francis heard that whisper for the first time on a Tuesday evening, sitting across from Charles at their small dining table in Surulere, Lagos. Charles had cooked jollof rice the way he always did on Tuesdays, stirring the pot with his left hand while humming an old fella song under his breath. He placed the plate in front of her with a smile so wide and so genuine that it almost hurt to look at. Almost. Because outside their window, a black Mercedes S-Class was parked across the street, and inside it sat a man named Francis Chukwuemeka, and his driver was opening the door for a woman in a red dress, and the woman was laughing, and Emmanuella could not stop watching. She turned back to her jollof rice. She picked up her fork, but something had already shifted inside her chest, and she did not yet know how much it was going to cost her. Charles Obiora was not a poor man, but Lagos had a way of making a good man feel small. He worked as a civil engineer for a mid-sized construction firm on the island. He woke up at 5 every morning, ironed his own shirts, packed his own lunch, and sent Emmanuella money for her shop rent before he even had breakfast. He was 31 years old, and he loved Emmanuella the way a quiet river loves the land it runs through, steadily, faithfully, without noise. They had been together for 3 years. He called her Em when he was in a good mood and said her full name in a teasing voice when she was being stubborn, and she would laugh every time because the way he said it sounded like a prayer and a joke at the same time. He was not perfect. He forgot anniversaries. He sometimes worked weekends. He could not afford the restaurant she saw on Instagram, the one with the candles on the water and the lobster that cost 40,000 naira a plate. But he remembered how she took her tea, 2 sugars, no milk, and every single morning, without being asked, he made it and placed it by her side of the bed before she opened her eyes. And that, Emmanuella would one day realize far too late, was the rarest thing in the world. It was at her friend Blessing's birthday party in Victoria Island that she first properly met Francis Chukwuemeka. He was tall, wore a cream agbada that looked hand-tailored, and he smelled like money the way only certain men in Lagos do. Not perfume exactly, but something deeper, like the air inside a brand new car. He walked over to her with 2 glasses of champagne and the kind of confidence that does not ask for permission. Emmanuella laughed at something he said. She should have walked away. She did not walk away. Francis Chukwuemeka was, by every visible measure, everything Charles Obiora was not. His apartment in Ikoyi had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Lagos lagoon. He drove 3 cars and let Emmanuella choose which one they took out on weekends. The first time he took her shopping on Amadabella Way and told her to pick anything she wanted, she stood frozen in the middle of the boutique like a woman who had walked into a dream and was afraid to touch anything in case she woke up. He laughed and put a silk blouse in her hands, and something deep inside Emmanuella unlocked. Something she had been pressing down, quietly, for 3 long years. She told Charles it was over on a Wednesday afternoon. She had rehearsed the words 6 times in front of her bathroom mirror. But when she sat across from him in their small sitting room in Surulere, with his hands folded on his lap and his eyes patient and steady, she could not use any of the words she had prepared. She told him she needed more than what they had. He was quiet for a long time. Not the angry kind of quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from a man trying very hard not to break. He did not ask her to explain herself further. He did not beg. He did not raise his voice. He simply stood up, went to the kitchen, and when he came back, he placed her spare keys on the center table with both hands, like someone laying down something sacred. That image, those keys, his hands, the stillness of the room, would come back to Emmanuella in the night, over and over. For months, she was not yet ready to count. The first few weeks with Francis felt like being wrapped inside a beautiful, glittering lie that she desperately wanted to believe. Fancy dinners at Knock by Alara. Weekend trips to Abuja. A gold bracelet slid onto her wrist over dessert at a rooftop restaurant while the Lagos skyline blinked below them. She posted none of it. Something in her gut told her not to, but she lived inside it, hungrily. She called Blessing, and told her she thought she had made the right choice. Blessing warned her. Blessing had always been the kind of friend who saw things clearly before anyone else did. But Emmanuella laughed it off and hung up before the warning could settle into her bones. She was not ready to hear it. Not yet. The cracks started as small things. The kind of things a woman in love with the idea of a man will explain away the first time, and the second time, and the third time, until she has explained so many things away that she is standing in a room full of missing pieces and calling it a home. Francis never asked how her day went. Not once. In 3 years, Charles had called her every evening at exactly 6:45, not because she asked him to, but simply because he wanted to know what had happened to her that day. Francis would call her, yes, but always to tell her what time he was picking her up and to remind her to wear something nice. Never to ask how she was carrying herself through the world. Never to ask what was heavy on her heart. Then she got sick in October. A bad malaria episode that knocked her flat for 5 days. Francis sent his driver with a pharmacy bag on the first day. He did not come himself. On the third day, she called him, and he was in Abuja for business. On the fourth day, she lay alone in his Ikoyi apartment, burning with fever, eating crackers, watching the lagoon through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and she thought about Charles. She thought about Charles sitting on the edge of her bed with a bowl of pepper soup he had made from scratch at midnight, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead, refusing to leave even when she told him he had work in the morning. She curled up under the expensive sheets in the expensive apartment and she cried, and she was not entirely sure if it was the fever or something far worse eating her from the inside. The moment that finally broke something permanent in her happened at a dinner party in Lekki Phase 1. A big house, big people, big noise. Francis introduced her to his friends with a hand on her waist and a wide smile, presenting her the way a man presents something he is proud to own. The men laughed approvingly, and the women smiled politely, and Emmanuella smiled back and said the right things and laughed at the right moments. But on the drive home, sitting in the front seat of the Bentley, she realized he had not once asked about her thoughts on any of the conversations that evening. He had not once turned to check on her. He was already on his phone before they reached the gate, scrolling through something more important than the woman sitting beside him. She turned and looked out her window at the Lagos night passing by, and she felt, for the first time, the full and suffocating weight of what she had walked away from. It was Blessing who told her, 6 months after the breakup with Charles, on a Sunday afternoon over rice and stew in Blessing's flat in Bogota, with the television low in the background and the kind of honest silence that only old friends can sit inside comfortably. Blessing put down her fork and said, she had seen Charles the week before. She said he looked happy. She said he was seeing someone, a doctor named Adiz, and that they had been together 4 months. She said it with the specific, merciful gentleness of a friend who knows the truth is going to hurt and chooses to deliver it with love anyway. Emmanuella excused herself. She went to Blessing's bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bathtub with both hands pressed over her mouth. Not to stop herself from screaming, just to hold herself together. Because something in her chest was collapsing slowly, the way a building comes down that has been quietly crumbling from the inside for a very long time. She sat there for 11 minutes. She counted every one of them. Then she washed her face, dried it carefully, and walked back out with her chin level and her eyes dry. She saw Charles 3 weeks later by accident, because Lagos is enormous, but fate is small. She was coming out of a supermarket in Oniken, and he was going in, and for 3 full seconds they simply stood and looked at each other on that pavement with the noise of the city moving around them like water around 2 stones. He looked well. He was wearing a simple blue shirt she did not recognize, and he had let his beard grow a little, and his eyes were calm. Not cold, not angry, just calm. The way a sea looks after a storm has completely passed through and left the water clean. He said her name once. She told him he looked well. He said she did too, and told her to take care of herself, and smiled once, gently, the way you smile at something you once loved and have made your peace with. Then he walked inside. She stood on that pavement for a long time after the supermarket doors closed behind him. A hawker passed her selling pure water. A Danfo bus blasted its horn somewhere behind her. Life, indifferent and enormous, continued all around her. And Emmanuella Francis stood very still in the middle of all of it, holding her supermarket bag, and understood with the kind of clarity that only ever comes too late exactly what she had done and exactly what she had destroyed. Emmanuella Francis did not end up miserable in the way that stories sometimes make it easy and tidy. She did not lose everything at once. Francis did not cheat on her dramatically or throw her out into the street. What happened was slower and lonelier than that, and in many ways much harder to bear. What happened was nothing. Months of beautiful, comfortable, expensive nothing. Dinners where she smiled on the outside. Events where she looked stunning in clothes that cost more than her mother's monthly upkeep. Mornings where she woke up in a bed that cost more than Charles earned in 3 months and lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling a silence so deep inside herself that no amount of luxury could reach the bottom of it. Francis was not a wicked man. He was simply a man who had never been taught to truly see a woman, to ask about her fears, to sit with her in her weakness, to stay when staying cost him something. He was generous with everything that could be purchased. He had nothing at all for the invisible parts of her. She left Francis on a quiet Friday in March, 14 months after it had all begun. She packed her things herself while he was in a meeting. She left his key on the kitchen island beside a glass of water she had poured for herself and not finished. She did not write a note. There was nothing left to explain. She moved back to Surrey, not to Charles. That chapter had long been closed, but back to herself. Back to the woman she had been before the hunger swallowed her whole. She reopened her small fabric shop on Adnaran Ogunsanya Street. She called her mother. She started going to church again on Sundays, not for anyone else, just to sit in the quiet and hear something hopeful. Slowly, carefully, she began the long and unglamorous work of rebuilding the parts of herself she had traded away for a gold bracelet and a view of the lagoon. She thought about Charles often, not with a frantic, desperate longing of the early months, but with a softer kind of grief, the grief that comes from a door you closed with your own hands that you will never be able to open again. She heard through blessing that he and Adiz got engaged on New Year's Eve. She heard they were happy. And something in Emmanuella that had always loved him, the truest, quietest part of her, was glad for him in a way that hurt beautifully and permanently. Because Charles Obiora had always deserved to be loved well, and she, in her season of confusion and hunger, had not been the one willing to give him that. The lesson she carries now is not one she speaks loudly. She carries it the way you carry a scar, not with shame, but with the permanent, humbling memory of what caused it and what it cost. She knows now that real love does not always arrive with fanfare or flash. It arrives at 6:45 in the evening, asking about your day. It arrives with pepper soup made at midnight. It arrives in 2 sugars and no milk, placed quietly by your side of the bed before you even open your eyes. It does not glitter. It does not perform. It simply stays. And staying, she now understands with every part of herself, is the most extraordinary thing one human being can ever offer another. If this story reached something deep inside you, if you have ever chosen the shine over the substance, or loved someone truly and quietly, or learned a painful lesson the hard way the way Emmanuella did, then this story was written for you. Like this video so more people can find it. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today, because you never know whose heart it might reach at exactly the right moment. And drop a comment telling me what you took from Emmanuella's journey. I read every single one. See you in the next story.